facing an affordability crisis every day. And you have, we're right here outside of Congress where there's still a partial shutdown going on. So the fact that he is here today, it is clearly a historic moment for him to be coming to the Supreme Court, but it also just tells us a lot about the president's thinking, and it really reinforces. In 2024, he spent so much of his time on the campaign trail talking about the crackdown that he was going to have on immigration. Him being here today shows he's full force on that.
And that's this idea that was discussed in there of there being an industry of people coming and having babies in America. That was pointed out by one of the justices that that's more of a policy argument than a legal argument. Just on the political topic, there was actually a tweet that Stephen Miller put out in the middle of these arguments. He said, birthright citizenship means that children of illegal aliens can vote to tax their children and seize their inheritance. This is a huge political debate. That certainly wasn't one of the legal arguments today.
No question. I mean, ultimately, the justices in the Supreme Court are not going to factor in what the political argument is today and the politics around it. But Stephen Miller was saying the quiet part out loud for the administration in that tweet. We've seen that this has become a losing issue for the president, that this was his strength, his talk about immigration, his talk about the border and what he wanted to do on that. And with everything we've seen this year with the crackdown from ICE, it's become a vulnerability, but again, it's still a primary focus for him when you see him here today.
And Paula, the outcome of this, there are many different ways the court can go, right? And it sounds like this was almost part of the discussion today in court. Take us through that.
Yeah, there are some off-ramps that they could take, but I didn't really hear them opting for those in this argument. The other question out there was, okay, if they do side with the government, logistically, how does this work out? Because the opponents argue that this actually could impact millions of people, a far broader group than what the government is saying. How does that work in terms of passports, legal citizenship for people who are already here under temporary visas? Really, the Supreme Court, though, has been perfectly happy to just leave the logistics and the details to people. But based on what we heard today, I don't think that's going to be a problem. It appears that this will likely be a complete loss for the administration. And look, this is going to be one of the first really big losses. Of course, he had one with tariffs. This is going to be one of the first really big cases, but I can tell you, as soon as this executive order was signed last year, people inside the administration, they were very confident that they could get through a lot of the policies that the president was implementing through the Supreme Court. This was the one where they said, but I'm not sure about this.
Yeah, it's a really tough uphill battle, as you've been emphasizing all day. Paula, Sabrina, thank you so much to both of you. Really appreciate your analysis. And here in just a few hours, the president will be addressing the nation on the war with Iran. His remarks coming on the 33rd day of what has been projected by the administration to be a 4 to 6 week operation. And as the president says, he is, quote, absolutely considering leaving NATO. We are live from the Middle East right after this. And some live pictures from Florida's Kennedy Space Center, where the Artemis II mission is set to launch just hours from now. They just completed checking the astronauts' spacesuits for any leaks, and they are ready to go. We have much more on that mission to the moon ahead. This is CNN News Central. Tonight, President Trump will deliver remarks to the nation on the war with Iran. Today, the president telling Reuters he plans to criticize NATO in his speech after again threatening to withdraw the U.S. from the alliance. Trump told the right-leaning British newspaper The Telegraph that he was, quote, never swayed by NATO and always knew they were a paper tiger, and Russian President Vladimir Putin knows that too. In the meantime, Iran's foreign ministry is denying Trump's claim that Tehran has asked the U.S. for a ceasefire, which Trump said would only happen after the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. Let's go now to CNN Chief National Security Analyst Jim Sciutto. He is joining us from Tel Aviv. And if people want to know where you are, Jim, I understand you were taking shelter there. There's actually a missile threat in the region. Tell us what's going on.
That's right, Brianna. For about the 10th time in the last several hours, I've lost count, frankly, multiple incoming missiles from Iran. In fact, there was a period a few hours ago at sunset when it was the busiest period of incoming fire, really since the start of the war. This most recent one came with almost no warning, not enough time to, typically there's a couple minutes warning to get to the shelter, and that implies it's coming from Iran. This one had no warning, so we're thinking it might have come from Lebanon. But what's important there, right, is that that level of fire contradicts President Trump's rosy words about progress in negotiations. Iran certainly still taking shots at Israel, and crucially, is still able to do so because, of course, despite the U.S. and Israeli campaign, which has been devastating for Iran, for Iranian capabilities, Iran does clearly still maintain the capability of firing back. And beyond these incoming missiles, you've had public comments from the Iranian Foreign Ministry denying that negotiations are underway. And the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is saying that as relates to the Strait of Hormuz, Iran will continue to exercise control there no matter what the U.S. demands. Now, that could be part of their own negotiating strategy. At this point, at least, the words from Iran and the fire from Iran contradicts the president's sense of progress in those talks.
All right, Jim, thank you so much for that report from Israel as you are taking shelter. We know that you'll keep an eye on things there. Let's go back now to Boris. He is at the Kennedy Space Center.